bringing you up to date on all the action from a busy weekend of women's soccer. This is USL Super League Game Week on SiriusXM FC.
Welcome into Game Week on SiriusXM. We are talking a recap of Match Day 13, previewing a little bit of Match Day 14, and we also spoke with Tampa Bay's Cecilie Fløe about her incredible start to the season. Alongside former All-SEC standout Marion Crowder, I'm Anna Witte. Marion, Cecilie told us a little bit about the shows that she's watching back home in Denmark, here in the States.
They're a little wild.
They're a little wild, honestly. There's some parallels, and we'll get into that later in the show, but what have you been watching these days?
Ooh, good question. I feel like I have like a split personality disorder when it comes to shows. When I'm by because we travel a lot. So like when I'm by myself, most of the time I'm like trying to like catch up on work still. And I love like just like a good background trash, like don't have to pay attention to it. I've seen the series 19 million times.
The Office, maybe?
No. So for me personally, I do love The Office. That's more of like I'm cooking, when I'm watching. Me personally, of late, it's been Sex and the City. Love rewatching Sex and the City. And I've recently, this is going to hit home. Do you remember when Pretty Little Liars came on?
Oh my gosh, middle school, right?
Every week they were like, find out who A is. And I was like, oh yeah, this is the week. Literally watched for 5 seasons, never found out who A was. And I saw it on HBO Max the other day and I was like, you know what? I'm doing it. So that's been my recent guilty pleasure. I'm still on the journey to find out who A is.
Wow. 15 years later, and here we are.
I will report back so you don't have to watch the bad acting. But the other part of the personality is like the shows I watch with like my husband. I'm sure you have like some where you guys watch it together too.
Yep.
We've been watching The Penguin. It's good.
I don't think I've heard of that. The Penguin documentary.
Okay. So do you remember the Robert Pattinson and Zoe Kravitz Batman movie?
No.
It was like a darker, like kind of emo Batman.
Okay.
And this show ties into that movie. It's about one of the villains that they show in the movie. It's actually really good.
Okay, yeah, we've been looking for a show to watch, and I'll have to look into that. I recently watched the Martha Stewart documentary on Netflix. It is a must watch. Everyone listening has to watch. This chick is hilarious. She is a boss. She is insane, but she knew what she wanted and she got it. And honestly, Marion, she's impressive.
I want to watch that. I've been looking for kind of a good little just like inspo. I wish they would come out with one on like Anna Wintour. That would be fun.
That would be a good one too.
But Martha Stewart is right up there. So that's on my list.
Martha was the first female billionaire. Back when like billionaires were like a big thing, right? Like in the 90s, that was huge. Still is huge, but in the 90s.
I would like to be one.
I know, right?
That's crazy. Okay, so she hit billionaire status in the 90s.
In the 90s, and they took her down. She went to prison for 5 months. It's a whole thing. You guys have to tune in. Really good. It's on Netflix. Mm-hmm. So just another female empowerment, really, documentary. But turning the page to USL Super League and what happened in Match Day 13, we had 2 draws and a massive Dallas win. Carolina hosted Spokane to a scoreless draw. Spokane must have hit the post maybe 3, 4, 5 times. Really could have had the win in that one. And the Florida Derby ended in a 1-1 draw thanks to a stoppage time goal from Fort Lauderdale's Anna Henderson. Dallas was the big game against Lexington. Dallas came back from a 0-2 loss in the final 8 minutes of the match. Dallas only has 1 loss. They have 2 games behind Carolina. They had a big win against Lexington. Those 2 goals were from Hinson, Danielson, and Brian. 2 players in specific came off the bench and made a big impact, scoring 2 of those goals. So, Marion, what does that say about this Dallas team as a whole to have 2 of their bench players contribute to the win?
Depth is a really interesting conversation topic, especially at this point in the season. And I want to hit first on your question and then get into that a little bit more. This Dallas roster, top to bottom, is one of the most complete rosters in terms of players who can make individual impacts. And if they keep going the way they're going, we might have a new leader at the top of the table. And I know all the Carolina fans are like, Not us. Yes,
Yeah.
you've been drawing, right? And they are finding ways to win, and it's not always pretty with this Dallas team. And I do think we're still seeing some of the cohesion start to take under Pauline McDonald, who got Coach of the Month. Congratulations to her, rightfully deserved. But we are seeing that she's able to get the max impact out of every single one of her players, starting 11 or not. And the thing that I love about, again, I'm going to kind of go off of my knowledge of Chris Petrocelli and kind of his vision for this Dallas side. The thing I love about this group is there's not a huge harp on starting 11, right? There's not a
Right.
huge harp on starting 11. Formations are just starting points. Everyone is going to have a role. It's just about your willingness to adapt to said role. Now, that being said, this obviously speaks to the depth of this team. And we have talked a little bit about depth, but I want to bring the attention to what depth can do for a group, especially when you have shorter opponents. Like you only have X amount of opponents that, they're only going to play different teams so many times, right? So what depth can do for you? It can restore the energy, right? Because you can deal with a lot more fatigue. You can have a split number of minutes on the legs, and it doesn't affect your ability to build out and continue to keep the same players on the field for X amount of minutes. We saw that, I'm going to go back to the college game. We saw a big reason that Florida State won the ACC championship was because of their ability to rotate players, keep them fresher for the full 90 minutes. That's what Dallas is doing. So that's A. B, there is a huge training component that it increases when you have depth to the roster. Anna, you know this. When you are a reserve player and you don't really feel like there's a chance for you, it is hard to stay mentally checked in, especially when we're talking about players who are maybe younger. They haven't experienced the pro level yet. They don't really kind of know what it's like to have those separate roles. Having a team that has really competitive depth keeps training high.
Totally.
Because you don't have those players that are checked out. Everybody thinks that there is a position for them on the line that week, and training is going to be much more impacted. And then the last thing that I'll bring up is something that you and I talked about when I was in my lovely hotel room at the beach, was the pyramid of a successful postseason run. The bottom of the pyramid is being able to secure points at home, the full 3 points. The second tier of that pyramid is to be able to get some sort of point on the road, whether that's a win or a draw, just consistently averaging about 2 for the entirety of your road games. The peak point of that pyramid is player availability, so health, and then team depth. That is a key component to really making the mark when we're talking about lifting a trophy.
The depth is so important. And you even look at the parallels right now, the NWSL in the semifinal portion of the playoffs. Gotham has so much depth and so many players who have been able to be interchangeable throughout the season in the starting 11. That's led them to be healthy, but be in this position to be in the semifinals and really competing for a championship trophy in a back-to-back year. So Dallas, when you look at it, Cecilie Strawn came off the bench. Gracie Bryant came off the bench against Lexington. It shows you that McDonald has a lot of pieces that she's working with and may not fully know what she wants her team to look like. In every single conversation with these coaches, they don't know the right formation yet. They don't know exactly what they want it to look like come June, but that's not important. It's about week to week getting better. And right now on November 13th, making sure the team has a good final rest of this month before the fall season ends.
And you know what's so interesting? That's such a good point that you bring up about Gracie Bryant, particularly coming off the bench, is that there are some coaches, that, again, going back to kind of what this thought process is of the Dallas group, that starting 11 really doesn't matter. How can I get the most out of every single player? A lot of coaches will come at it from a mentality standpoint where they look at a matchup or they look at maybe a tough environment and they say, hey, I feel like the first 15, 20 minutes of this game is just going to be chaos, right? Who are the players on my team who can deal with chaos, who can come in and settle it? And then perhaps we bring in the players like a Gracie Bryant. Once the match is settled, she's had a chance to visualize from the sideline, all right, there's a pocket of space in between their fullback and their center back. Okay, there's a pocket of space right underneath their back line. If I could pick it up there, right, it gives them a little bit more purpose so that when they do actually go into the match, they know exactly how to impact. There's no guessing to it. And so sometimes I would argue that there are some strategies involved because Gracie Bryan can start at any Super League team in this league. Let's be honest. And so there are going to be some strategies involved with a roster like this of like, okay, who can come in and really settle the match for me in the first 15 minutes? Who maybe does better seeing the field, seeing what they're supposed to do, and then impacting the game from there. So it's going to be exciting to watch Pauline McDonald continue to shape shift with this group.
Dallas isn't done yet. They're actually 2 games behind Carolina, but they still have to face Carolina, Tampa Bay, Brooklyn, and Fort Lauderdale before they wrap up this fall schedule, which is 4 really big games in particular. So Dallas sweeps Lexington in the fall series. They win both of those matches. The U.S. women's national team has 2 games left in 2024. They face England and Netherlands in both November and December. And head coach Emma Hayes has been very clear. She's watching the USL Super League. She coached actually back in the W League back in 2002. And it's clear that Hayes wants fresh talent. We saw 6 players get their first U.S. women's national team caps just a few weeks ago in her system. But Marion, you look at USL Super League, these players who have been consistent throughout the start of the season. Who are 2 players in particular that you would like to see Hayes give an opportunity?
Sam Meza is the obvious choice. I think that both you and I agree with, and I'll tell you why. One thing that you'll see with Emma Hayes is she is not shy about saying how big of a jump it is from a youth national team to particularly the full national team. Particularly, she's talking about the U20s, because when you get to kind of like the U20s and U23s, I've been in both of those camps, they're a little bit of the same, and you can have players that flux a little bit up and down. But that jump, particularly from the U20s to the full team, is real tough. It is a different level because you are playing against, let's just call it what it is, grown women.
Yep.
A full team of grown women, half of them who are veterans. And it's just a very different mental aspect for you to have to deal with. So I say all that to say, Sam Meza, we haven't seen her past that U20 stage. She's been in youth national teams at every age, 15, 17, 20. And I remember talking to Anson Dorrance when I was calling one of her college games last year, and him saying immediately, she will have an impact on the full national team before her career is over. And that means a lot coming from him. The reason he felt like that was, yes, she's got the vision. We've seen it. She's got the distribution. We know that she can switch the point of attack with the best of them. But it was her defensive presence that he actually felt like would end up getting that gap to get her to the full team. And so when we look at Sam's defensive presence for this Dallas team particularly, I think it's been on full display. She's gritty. She knows how, despite her size, she can win challenges in the air. She is tough as nails. So you mix that blue collar work rate with the kind of that white collar prestige that she is on the ball. And I really do feel like she's got the tools to make it at the next level.
Meza's been a big piece in that midfield for Dallas that's led to their success to start the season. I completely agree on Meza. We saw her compete really well when she was at UNC. She got drafted to OL Reign in the NWSL, now here in the Super League, and getting off on the right foot. For me, I look at Fort Lauderdale's Addie McCain getting an opportunity. Right now, she is that Golden Boot leader, 6 goals on the season. I think McCain has great size. McCain has shown her versatility. She can play that 9 role really well for Fort Lauderdale, but she said on the show last week that it's not her true position. She really likes playing more of a 10 role or more of a false 9 role. But being able to score goals in the Super League is extremely impressive at the rate that McCain is doing it with all these new numbers around her. And McCain has stepped up into this leadership role that is so new for her. She's been asked to really lead this Fort Lauderdale team in a way that she didn't have to do when she was with the Red Stars and the Kansas City Current prior. So I would like to see McCain get an opportunity underneath Emma Hayes.
I think that she could, I like that you bring up the leadership quality, because it kind of goes back to maybe like something that Sam is missing.
Right.
Not that she's missing leadership, but she's missing kind of being like having to be that main vocal presence.
Yeah, that's a lot.
It is a lot. And so when you go up to the full team, I mean, I can just speak from the 20s and the 23s. you have a lot of personalities that you've got to be able to deal with. And that's something that people don't talk about a lot, right? Is having to also navigate the locker room in those
Right.
situations. It can be really difficult. And so to have someone with kind of that composure of Addie McCain, that leadership quality of Addie McCain, I have no doubt that she would be able to come in, deal, navigate with the locker room and still perform. Because sometimes having to deal with the external factors at camp really do affect your performances and ultimately if you get called back in or not.
Totally. The US is at a point too where they're bringing in all these new people and all these new personalities, and Hayes is looking for an identity.
Yeah.
And she's also going to be looking for players to kind of match relationship wise. So I think McCain could fit into that mold.
Yeah, I think from a defensive standpoint, Sid Studer really comes to my mind. And I say that because to tie into everything that we've said, she's been at the U23 level a couple of different times.
Yep.
And she's also played with them in actual world competitions, right? So that takes this idea sometimes when you have someone making their first cap or they're in their first camp, they can't really understand the pressure that it is to play for the US women's national team. And so maybe they go all the way through camp, they do well, then they get to the actual stage and it's just too big. Right? It's just too big because they've never had to deal with that kind of a pressured moment. And Sid's dealt with that. So she was, when she was at Washington State, she got called in with the 23s a couple of different times. And it was actually where Philip Poole, he watched one of their matches and it's actually where he noticed her. And I'm going to quote what he said, saying that I just knew that she could have so many different roles within our team. It really was just about finding A, what fits her, but B, what do we need? And so we've seen how important that is for the Super League to kind of have like a plug and play player where it's like, all right, I know this isn't your best position like Addie McCain, but this is what our team needs right now. And so for Sid Studer, I don't think center back would be where she is for the national team. I actually could see her very nicely at a kind of a lopsided 3-5-2 formation. I could see her as a very strict holding mid. I could see her really impacting the game on a lot of different levels because she is an extremely quality defender on the ball. She times her tackles incredibly well. And what I love the most about her is that she has this innate understanding of when to clear my lines versus when we can build out of the back, starting with me. And sometimes that's the hardest thing to teach a defender is that recognition of we're under pressure, we're under duress, we need to be able to get ourselves forward and move our lines up versus we can relax here with the ball. I can let the runs form in front of me. I don't mind having that responsibility. And that's been the most impressive thing that I really think could translate at the international stage.
At the international stage too, the versatility is so important, and that's what's going to make Studer be a big piece to Hayes' system. I mean, you look at Crystal Dunn, when she was with the U.S. national team, they'd have her play in an outside mid position. She could play in the midfield. She could play as an outside back, and players get injured. And you're in these tournaments where you're playing game to game to game as grown women. Injuries happen and rest is needed. And having versatility as a piece of your game just makes you stand out a little bit better.
And from a coaching perspective, if we're putting our coaching hats on right now, who am I going to choose if I've got a very strict center back versus this player who can really kind of fit a couple of different things? Obviously, you don't know who's going to get injured. You don't know who's going to need rest. You don't know who's going to be on yellow card accumulation, perhaps. I am picking the versatile player versus someone that's only going to be able to fit one.
Totally. There's only so many Naomi Gurmas in the world, and you only need one. And she's got her. My second player is Brooklyn's Mackenzie George. I think she has really given me Racing Louisville Emma Sears vibes, who just got her first cap, scored a goal in her first cap. 100%. She's got the speed. She's really good in the wide areas and can create for herself really nice crosses as well. I think George is one of those fearless players, and personality-wise, she's extremely fearless. She can fit almost in any, it seems like she can only fit in so many different teams when it comes to how she could relate personality-wise. She's technical, and I think that could be a big piece in the wide areas for the U.S. I think you give a player like Mackenzie George the opportunity, she would thrive in that setting.
I totally agree. And here's the thing about Mackenzie George. I covered her at Tennessee, and every single coach that talks about Mackenzie George, the grit, the fight, that girl has, undeniable. And there are times, to your point, I do think she's extremely versatile, and I think that she could actually really hone in on some skills with a little bit of an improvement in the decision making in the final third. But
Sure.
what I think she could be an impact now is that 10 to 15 minute spark plug where it's like, hey, we need someone to come in here and help us set the tone, right? We need someone who's not afraid to go 1v1, who really just gives us that jolt of energy. Mackenzie, she could absolutely do that.
Mackenzie's been really fun to watch in this Brooklyn setting, and they had a rough go of it in October, and George really led the way for that team and where they are right now in the standings.
And she's got a cute dog. Who doesn't want to have? And she brings it every year.
And everybody on the U.S. team loves cute dogs.
Exactly.
It's a shoe-in.
Do us a favor, Emma.
All right, we got plenty left to talk about on Game Week. We still have our Cecilie interview, so stay with us here on Game Week on SiriusXM.
Bringing you up to date on all the action from a busy weekend of women's soccer. This is USL Super League Game Week on SiriusXM FC.
Welcome back into Game Week on SiriusXM alongside Marion Crowder. I'm Anna Witte. We are actually, today kicks off match day 14 in the Super League. DC Power hosts Brooklyn at 6:30 on Peacock. Lexington will host Spokane at 7 p.m. Eastern time on Peacock. And then we got Tampa Bay against Carolina. This is the second matchup between the two teams this season, Saturday at 7 o'clock on Peacock. Tampa Bay is a team with experience. They've got multiple threats up top when it comes to goal scoring. However, the last outing between Carolina and Tampa Bay ended in a 0-0 draw on September 27th. For Tampa Bay, their attack has gotten better and better from each game to each game. What has been that difference, or potentially that difference, that can lead them to a win over Carolina?
Cecilie Fløe. I mean, like the interview with her, did you get the sense, Anna, that for her, it's effortless what she's been able to do in the attack? Because I did.
Yeah, I think so. I think she feels so comfortable.
And I think that her confidence, it can't be understated what it can do for the confidence of the rest of the team when you have an attacker who is just on their P's and Q's, just feeling good in front of goal, making good decisions. You said in that interview, making things happen for herself. When you have finally an attacker that's willing to shoulder that burden, it provides so much confidence for the rest of the team. And I've said this probably ad nauseum on the broadcast, but sometimes we get so up in arms about the defenders and we're like, they're not defending well, they're letting goals in, they're doing all these things.
Yeah.
But there has to be a conversation about what the attackers are or are not doing to help solve that problem. This is not an individual sport, and it's not a sport separated by the three lines. And so sometimes what we need to see from a defensive standpoint is some of the burden being carried by the attackers to play with a lead, get a lead, or have that confidence that, okay, we've got a playmaker who, if we go down, they can pick us back up. And I think that you're starting to see her impact really resonate just from a confidence perspective and a feeling of freedom as they play with the rest of this Tampa Bay side.
Cecilie Fløe joins the show right after this, so make sure you stay tuned for that Tampa Bay interview. For Carolina, Megan McClellan has seen 6 clean sheets so far this season, leads the league in goal. Offensively, really struggled against Spokane to figure out what would work for them in the final third. But I think their forward, Jada Bedoya, has been a really nice bright spot. She just adds versatility that Coach Poole was looking for in a system. He wants every forward to provide something different. But for Carolina, they don't have Addison Merrick on the back line anymore. And I think for them, that's one less attacking threat out of the back line.
Couldn't agree more. I think that not having her ability to get up and down the right flank is impactful. Yeah. I think we would be naive to say that it was not. But we have praised and lauded this Carolina team for being able to put it together. If they were missing the attacking piece one game, missing the defensive piece one game, it was almost like the other side picked up what was lacking. Right. And so I would argue right now that it really needs to be a midfield presence for this group, particularly, I think that Taylor Porter and DeMarco are going to have to continue to play massive roles in terms of minimizing what's happening with their back line. So you've got both Studers, right, on the right and the left. Sid Studer's going to be the right center back, and then other Studer's going to be the right back. And so if you have kind of this, I don't want to say newness because there have been some relationships there, but you do have a different profile than Addison Merrick. And so because of that, teams are going to look to exploit that gap, particularly between the outside back and fullback. The holding midfielders become so much more important to kind of screen that pocket of space and make it as less dangerous as possible. And so I hate putting all that pressure on the holding mids of Carolina, but I think that if they can really hunker down, they're going to be the key to them getting out of this draw phase that we see. But I really also want to see a little bit more from Riley Baston. And I think that she's got all the keys. I think she's got all the tools to make an impact. And if they can really get her and Jada Bedoya going on both sides of the pitch, they might really could turn the draws into some wins.
So that's what Carolina needs, is their forwards to really get going. Carolina now has 6 draws on the season, no losses and 5 wins. And ironically, those 2 defenders, Marion, the 2 Studers, they're not related. I had to ask in particular. No relation, not even cousins. Studer's not a name I had ever heard until I started covering the Super League.
Now we got Josie and we got Sydney. And you're just like, oh, sisters, sure. No.
Yeah. No. I love the name Josie, by the way. What a great name.
Right. You're right.
I was on the sideline for that one, and I was just like, if I ever have a daughter one day, I got to put that in my back pocket.
I want to ask you that, though. I mean, because you get a different perspective than any of us in terms of the Super League and your ability to do the sideline reporting role for Carolina. So for you being in that game, I know it wasn't the best weather conditions, but What did you gather on the sidelines in that game?
Carolina and Spokane had a really interesting battle in the midfield, and you brought up DeMarco and Porter, who had been big pivotal pieces for them going forward and for their defense. However, Spokane really won that, and Taylor Almer really stood out to me. I think that was actually the turning point in her season. She had multiple shots. She did a really nice job slowing down Carolina's counter opportunities and helping out her 2 center backs, and she did it pretty flawlessly. I think that perspective on the field is really interesting to see how both coaches kind of go about having conversations with their players as they go on, different substitution tactics, and just seeing the field from a different perspective than we typically see up in the booth. So I think Spokane won that midfield battle by far. Unfortunate they couldn't get that win on the road that I felt like would boost their confidence going into tonight against Dallas. However, it was interesting to see Carolina and how Coach Poole's side, like the wheels were turning. They know they have to get better if they want to hold on to that number 1 spot.
Who do you think is the happier manager?
After that one in particular? Yeah. Oh, by far Johnson.
Me too.
The game ended in Spokane's favor by far. And I interviewed Almer after the game, and it was really interesting to hear her perspective of like, I think we've got the through passes going. We showed we could break down the best.
It was different. It was less predictable.
Yeah, so much less predictable. Also, fun fact, actually, Johnson, before the game, I was talking to her about, the travel across the country. Yeah. She said, our bus got a flat tire right before we came over to the field. So we had to take 5 Uber XLs. She wasn't upset at all. It really didn't mess up their travel, but 5 Uber XLs. Like, what a twist.
What a twist. Not something you hear every day.
Not every day, but Spokane certainly has a lot of travel in store.
At Uber, sponsor USL Super League.
Yeah, right? I didn't get a chance to get it in the broadcast, but we'll take a few vouchers while you're at it.
Me too.
Make sure to stay with us here on Game Week. We chatted with Tampa Bay's Cecilie Fløe about her first time professionally playing in the States and her adapt to the Tampa Bay area. Don't go anywhere. It's Game Week on Sirius XM.
Bringing you up to date on all the action from a busy weekend of women's soccer. This is USL Super League Game Week on Sirius XM FC.
Welcome back into Game Week on Sirius XM. We are joined by Tampa Bay's Cecilie Fløe. Cecilie, you have played in just 6 games, 4 goals for Tampa Bay so far this season, and this is your first time playing professionally here in the States. So why was right now the right time for you to join the Super League and head out to Florida?
I just think that I was playing in Denmark before, so I just wanted to go abroad, and then like this opportunity came, and I have been in Florida before, so I kind of knew like just about the state and stuff. So it was kind of safe too, even though I've traveled like half around the world here. But yeah, that's why.
It's been really cool, for lack of a better vocabulary word, but it's been really cool to see your immediate impact on this Tampa Bay Sun team in more ways than one, but particularly on the attacking side of the ball. I'm curious. It's always a tough thing, right, to come into a locker room, mid-season and then really find your footing. How have you been able to do that seemingly just right off the bat?
I think like the girls has been really welcoming, has been really nice. I think we have a good squad, and just like the coaches, I think believe in me and helps me, and yeah. So it's just I feels natural to just come and go in on the team.
Being in a new team, feeling like it is a natural environment is so important, especially with a new league, a new team, a lot of new teammates. When you say these coaches and your coaching staff or your teammates have helped you through this process, what specifically has been key for you to go out guns a-blazing since the start?
Um, I don't know. I just think because we had this long period where we didn't play because we obviously couldn't get here because of the visa. It's just like fun to play again and just like wanted to play. And I feel like that's also like a motivation to just go out there and do everything you can.
You've had a good bit of experience, at least at the youth national team level. I know we were laughing about your one cap, but a cap still counts. But definitely, I mean, you've seen what it's like to be on the global stage. And when we're like, if we're looking at the college game right now, we just had the U20 World Cup, obviously U17 World Cup, and you had players that are coming back and they're reintegrating into their college teams. I'm curious to know, the difference and the mentality difference for a player who has been on the global stage. You kind of have to turn a different part of your mind on to go be and represent your country versus, coming back to represent like your club. What's the biggest difference, do you think, representing club versus representing country?
Um, like when you represent your country, the time period is way shorter. So like individual stuff, like individual training and stuff, you can't really do. You have to switch on your mind, and like even like all the tactics is probably not gonna be the same. So you have to switch on like another side. Like here we do this, and like kind of leave not leave what you do in the club behind, but like practice is so different, so you just have to switch in your brain. I think that's like the biggest difference from playing in the club and playing in the national team.
Cecile, we've really enjoyed watching you play in this Tampa Bay system, and the way that you get things going seamlessly, sometimes on your own, has been really impressive. But off the field, we want to get to know you a little bit more. You've lived in Florida before. You're back in Tampa Bay. What have you really enjoyed off the field about your new home?
I have a really nice apartment and just like the freedom to go like everywhere. I don't have a car yet, sadly, but
Mm.
just like going, yeah.
Are you
Okay.
have a driver's license? Wait, do you have a driver's
I
license?
do have a driver's license. I
Okay.
don't have
Okay.
a car yet.
Okay.
Wait, was that hard? I've actually never, I mean, because obviously like Anna and I, like we get our permits and stuff at like what, 14, 15. Like I haven't in my adult life been able to ask someone, what has it been like learning how to drive a car?
What do you mean? Like,
Do you have cars in, I need to know, do you have cars in Denmark? Like do you drive in Denmark?
There.
I have to know. I have to know.
yes.
Okay. Okay. So I went to Paris. I went to Paris this summer and they were like, no, we don't know how to drive, woman. What are you talking about? So like
Really?
I have my moped.
Like
That's
so
it.
many cars, and
Okay.
especially in Paris, like it's
So
filled.
are you waiting to get your car from home shipped here? Or are you going to get one here?
No, I just want to lease a car. I don't have a car
Okay.
at home. It's just I just been driving my parents' car at home.
So how do you get around in Tampa Bay? Are you Ubering everywhere you want to go?
There's like this nice little trolley we can take
Oh,
down
nice.
to downtown Tampa, or else like if I'm doing something, I'm doing it mostly with my teammates. So like they'll have a car and they can drive, but yeah, because I'm under 25, it's so expensive for me to rent a car.
Oh, for sure.
Yeah.
Oh,
So
for sure. Things you don't think about. I had a teammate in college from Sweden, and she walked me through all of that, and I was just like, I would have never thought in my life. But I mean, Tampa obviously got hit really hard with some pretty bad weather events early this season. How is it? One of the things that Anna and I have been the most impressed with is just the community that always seems to be around this team, the buy-in to this team. Obviously, when something tragic like the hurricanes that have happened occurs, what's it been like to kind of be really in tune with the community and having to go through a tragedy like that together?
I feel like it's been hard, but I feel like we've tried to support each other and like try to help out. Like for example, the like when our teammates' houses got flooded, or like with the wind and all the trees and branches and stuff, like trying to help them out, like saying checking up if they need any help to like remove stuff, or just like, yeah, I feel like we've been standing together close on that part, and it's helped us a little bit too, I think, on the field.
Yeah, I also think too, your team specifically has a lot of experience playing, but also just in life in general, one of the older clubs in this league. How do you feel like the experience, not just playing in this league, playing in various leagues around the world, has helped you guys come together and have some of this success to start?
I feel like we have like people are aware of like tactics and stuff, so we communicate a lot, mostly like when like there's a break, like communicating and like helping each other and like trying to see what's working, what's not working, and I feel like you can feel that experience on the field.
Yeah. I want to get back to getting to know you kind of off the pitch a little bit. We had a fun conversation earlier about the fact that like a Danish is actually a half fly. At least in the American culture, you're like, we have something similar, but you guys do it a little bit different. I'm curious, what's been like the biggest culture change for you in the States?
How nice everybody is, like
Oh,
saying
wow.
like
Wasn't expecting that.
like saying hi, how are you, and stuff like that. Even like when you walk on the sidewalk, sometimes you'll be like, hey, how are you, like someone I don't know. In
You like
the,
do a double take. You're like, wait, do I know you? Am I supposed to know you?
yeah, like in Denmark that would never happen. Like if you're lucky, you get a smile when you pass someone.
Right, right. Well, Mary and I both live in the South, so I feel like we're kind of used to that. We know what
Yeah.
that's like. But in Florida, that does seem kind of not the norm. I mean, you also mentioned the fact that you get the chance to still watch some of your shows in Denmark. So what are you watching from back home now that you're here in the States?
I'm watching this dating show with like farmers where, yeah, I just love it. It's like the age range is so different. Like there can be like 20 years olds and they can be like almost 80-year-olds on the show.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, they're just trying to find love and like actually, yeah, it's just funny because it's not like, normally in a show, like a dating show, is like you see all these hot people and stuff. It's just like the average person, and I love that so much.
That reminds me of like, isn't there like a dating site in America? It's like Farmers Meet.
Farmers only, right?
Farmers only. Farmers only.
Not spending on it.
Cecilie, that's what they modeled this show after. They modeled it after farmersonly.com.
But they're not like farmers are not dating farmers. They're like dating
Other people.
people. Yeah, they're not dating farmers. It's like,
So is this, I'm going to like equate this. Anna tried like Love Island. Like if we look at more of like the Bachelorette franchise, is it something where they have to end like in an engagement, or they can just kind of be like, no, this is my person. We're good.
No, it's just like they choose a person and then they go on a romantic weekend, and then like you get an update in the end if they're still together or if they just decided not to be together, because sometimes some of the people go on the show just to be there. So
Right.
like if they get chosen and then afterwards they're like, oh yeah, we're not talking anymore because they just like shot them out right after they're stopped filming.
You need to tune into Love is Blind on Netflix. This sounds exactly what we watch here in the States, and I swear you're going to love it. Very similar shows.
I've watched Love is Blind like one season like a few years back, and it's so boring in the parts when they're like in the start. So like
That's fair.
through that, it's just like takes so long.
You got to give it some time.
Are you a foodie?
A little bit, I would say.
Okay. For all, I feel like Danish culture is not something we get to like talk about a lot. So like tell all of our American audience, like what's a typical like Danish meal, and then what's been your favorite American meal so far?
Oh, the food is very different.
Okay.
Yeah, very different. Like in Denmark, I eat a lot of rye bread, and it's not
Okay.
like rye bread how you would think about it. It's like
Okay.
rye with like seeds and stuff. I can't
Okay.
get it here, so I'm kind of sad. But
You could find a farmer who can help you make this rye
yeah,
bread.
true. Yeah, sure.
Full circle moment.
No, but we just like I would eat that for lunch, like with some what do you call like toppings on top,
Like condiments. We call them condiments. Like you talking about like mayonnaise mustard type of thing, or are you talking about like meat?
like meat, like ham, like eggs, or
Deli meat.
Yeah.
yeah, just. But you don't have a lot of that here. You have
Okay, so you're like a big sandwich person though, like back home.
yeah, but it's not a sandwich. It's not a sandwich because
Okay.
I really don't like sandwiches because of all the bread. It's just
Oh,
like
so you just have like one thing
One
of bread.
piece.
yeah, it's like I feel like when I've played at home and we have Americans, we call them like open faced sandwiches.
What have you liked here, American food wise?
Um,
Have you tried a burger yet?
no, I actually haven't had a burger. I like some of the Mexican places, like the small, like different small
Oh yeah.
tacos. It's
Look,
Yeah.
I'm gonna have a hot
Tacos?
take. I'm gonna have a hot take, and people are gonna come at me. Anna, I'm just warning you now. Okay.
Oh gosh.
If you're gonna go get a burger, you might as well just go to McDonald's. Like, just go do
No.
the thing. Get the quarter pounder with cheese.
No.
Do it, or go to Wendy's and get the junior bacon cheeseburger, and just just make it as American as you can. I'm telling you, don't sleep on Wendy's.
Marion,
Junior bacon
you're
cheeseburger,
like
French fries, and a frosty.
We have
it's
McDonald's.
cliche American right now.
Their McDonald's is different. Their McDonald's is very different than our McDonald's. It's very different. I've had a Germany McDonald's. It wasn't great. That's all I'm saying. It wasn't great.
It's just like we're not allowed to put in all of those like bad things for you. You
I
are
know.
Right.
I know, but it tastes good.
It
It
does.
tastes good. So that's my hot take. I'm gonna let
Okay.
it be known.
I like that. Cecile, we'll let you go. But one last thing. This is a big game for you guys this weekend against Carolina. Carolina has had 6 clean sheets. Their goalkeeper, Megan McClellan, has been standing on her head throughout this entire season. Where do you feel like as a forward, you can really exploit this Carolina back line?
I feel like we have some good opportunities like on the side. We have like some really good dribblers and into space, like just like running from that back line. I feel like if we do well as a team, but we have to do because they're really strong, so we have to do well as a team too. And it's not like only like the individual we can win on.
Awesome. Team effort, as always. Well, Cecile, thank you so much for the time. It was so great to get to know you. I mean, Mary and I are going to have to tune into this farmer show. We'll have to find it on YouTube or something. But best of luck this weekend.
Thank you.
Thanks so much for joining us on Game Week this week. You can catch us every single Wednesday on the SiriusXM app, or you can catch us on YouTube where every prior episode is currently available. Also, tune in to every single game this week on Peacock. We'll see you next Wednesday. Have a great rest of your week.
You've been listening to USL Super League Game Week on SiriusXM FC.